Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode, another author interview here at the Cozy Book Nook. I am joined tonight by CL Pauwels, Cyndi. We'll be talking about her writing journey. We're going to talk about the books that she has out and the books that she may have coming out in the future, and kind of just get to know her a little bit. So thank you for joining us tonight. Cyndi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So let's take a little bit about your writing journey. How many books do you have?
I have 4 novels out, and early nonfiction that was for a nonprofit that I used to volunteer for.
Okay, so that's how you started?
I published my first short story in 1989.
Really?
Shows you how old I am. And my first published novel actually grew out of that story. So.
Wow, okay. Now, did you publish in a magazine, or did you?
It was a magazine, yeah.
That's one route that I've never taken, but I've heard a lot of these successful writers have, like, a lot of times it started in magazines and stuff with short stories, or that's how they kind of got into, just moving forward into writing novels and stuff. So, but I've never been able to take that. I've always admired that about like Stephen King did a lot.
It used to be a lot easier.
Yeah.
There are so fewer magazines and journals that take short stories anymore.
Right. And there's so many writers.
Yes.
Last time I looked, it's just unbelievable the amount of competition you had to even like submit stories and stuff. I know like some people would love to have made like a career just writing short stories for those. Yeah. So which one was your first novel?
40 and Out.
Okay.
It was actually set. We're from the Toledo area, and it's the first in a trilogy set in Toledo with a homicide detective. Like I said, it grew out of that short story. That the first novel, 40 and Out, then came out in 2014.
We're very excited to have some mystery here too. So one thing I found as a bookseller is that indie authors most of them are romance or fantasy seem to be the biggest groups. But so we've had a hard time finding a lot of different genres, like even horror, which is very popular and traditional, but not so much in indie authors. We haven't come too many compared to the others.
Yeah.
But,
I don't know that I could come up with any. I'd have to think.
Yeah.
I know somebody out there is saying, "Oh, but you know."
Oh, yeah, right.
Sorry.
But at least, and the mystery is even smaller, So it's very nice. I mean, when people come in, my first and only novel ever, and it was a mystery novel. A lot of people are just, they like that because there's no other mystery novels on there. Now I've got competition, but it's so good to get some more genres up there. Now, are all your books mystery?
Yeah, it's all crime fiction. I worked in the criminal justice field for almost 20 years in different capacities, and I've always read mysteries. It started way back with Nancy Drew and Trixie Belden and the Hardy Boys and all those. Again, dating myself, but that's what I grew up on.
Yeah.
And then into Agatha Christie. I have an entire shelf at home dedicated to Sue Grafton's Alphabet series.
So I got to be.
No, Alphabet ended at Y, unfortunately. But no, that's because that's what I've read so much. Mm-hmm. It was natural for me to gravitate to writing it.
Yeah.
And so it's all crime fiction. The first trilogy in Toledo is a police detective, and then the new one, which just came out in August. Fatal Errors is set in Dayton and Yellow Springs.
Very nice.
And it's an independent, she's an amateur, they would call it, but she's a computer hacker.
Very nice. Very nice. Now, I was talking to you and your husband beforehand, and he's also in cybersecurity.
That's my in-house guru.
I love it. So you were active in the criminal justice system, and your husband's cybersecurity. Mm-hmm. I've seen a trend here.
Oh, yes.
For me, I'm a veteran, and my fiance, soon-to-be wife, is a VA nurse. So it's neat how people kind of gravitate based on those kind of interests. It's like it's more solid than just if you like to take walks on the beach. Like you actually have a core set of values in law enforcement. That's pretty interesting. I don't really know a lot of authors either that their stories take place in the Dayton area, so Yellow Springs area. So that's really fascinating.
Yeah, I've often said I don't have the imagination to build a new world.
Mm-hmm.
People who write fantasy and who create this whole
out
of whole plot. I couldn't do that. I don't have that imagination. So my stories are all set in real places, and one thing that I've had readers tell me about the Toledo Trilogy is that they like seeing places that they've been.
Right.
Oh, I've been in that store. I ate at that restaurant, or I know that park. And it's the same thing I did then with Fatal Errors being in the Dayton Yellow Springs. We've been down here 20 years now, and it was a natural, well, not intentional progression. As a fellow writer, you know what I mean when I say my characters talk to me.
Yeah.
Well, when this character introduced herself and kind of told me a little bit about who she was, I'm like, okay, where is this going to be set? I didn't know what town I wanted her to be in. And I started doing research because the main character's name is Fatál. And she told me that she was one quarter gypsy, or Roma, as it's more generally known now. And I'm thinking, well, I don't know much about that culture, so I had a lot of research to do. And I started doing the research, and believe it or not, the first recorded land-owning gypsy family in the country was in Dayton.
Really? Oh my God!
I was off and running.
Yes.
It's just obviously she knew what she was talking about when she started telling me her story. We did. There is an entire section at Woodland Cemetery in Dayton, the big historical cemetery, that is the Gypsy Community Burial Ground.
I had no idea.
If you look at I should have a cover. I should have my book in hand. The angel monument on the cover is from Woodland Cemetery. I took that picture.
Oh, okay.
That is actually the monument over Queen Matilda's gravesite, and it anchors the cemetery area.
Wow, I've actually never visited the cemetery, but I looked into it just based on one of being the haunted places, around the Dayton area to go check out.
They have a lot of really cool walking tours.
Oh, here you go. You got it. Stage left.
He's my wonderful support staff. I don't know if this will show up on camera or not, but this angel is the monument.
Oh, now you point that out, I actually recognize that. But yeah, that's great. Yeah. And I like the ones and zeros on there too. That's
the binary in the background. My cover designer is excellent.
Yeah, even the text is very technical on that too.
Does a really good job for me. That Dayton history is built into the story.
I love that. Like, I just recently, this year, I read several Stephen King books, but one of them that I read before takes place in Cincinnati. As a reader, I was super stoked. It was a female detective. It was a mystery, too, which was weird because he doesn't do a lot outside of horror. It was like, talking about Norwood and stuff like that. It's like, oh my God, I used to go down there and stuff.
Not heard about that.
Yeah, God, for the life of me, I can't off the top of my head remember which one it was. But it was definitely one of his newer ones, maybe around 2016, 2017 when it came out. But yeah, so that's actually probably the ones that I'll start with, because it's not part of that's a trilogy, and this is separate.
This is the beginning of a new trilogy.
So this is definitely the one, because we always buy that book, because we love to read just as much as we love to sell. And I tell you, I'm geeking out just the fact that it's going to be based around this area too.
Well, and if you're in IT, you'll
and that as well. Yes, that as well too. I think I'm gonna love reading that one. So, and the other ones obviously take place farther up north, but still in Ohio, which is really cool. Because I'm in the same boat. Like I thought as an author, I was going to do where I would just pick a random place. I would learn about that place, because one of the favorite parts of me of writing is learning. That research
is great. Yeah.
Research is so enjoyable. If you're a writer, I'm sure you probably understand too that just doing that research, but it's never got that far, because you not only have to get the the location and maybe the street name, but maybe they have an accent. There's a dialect a little different.
Just getting the ambiance of an area can make a big difference. Like you said, the dialect. Toledo has a surprising, apparently to some people, not to us because we grew up in the area, but they have very close-knit ethnic communities. They have the Polish community, the Hungarian, and the Greek, and the Hispanic, and they're not, I'm going to say they're isolated, but they're very much grouped together, but then it's all very much a melting pot in the city. So I have a lot of those kind of names in my books, and people, they kind of stumble over them if they're not familiar with the language, but it's very authentic to the area.
That's that good. That in itself takes a lot of research as well too, and being in the criminal justice, that's got to help too with being able to write the lingo. I think it's one of the things that kind of kept me from. So I love mystery and I love like police books, but they have their own language in itself and procedures and policies and things that would make sense. If you're just writing a story to an officer or someone who works in law enforcement, would read it's like.
We watch a lot of crime shows, or we'll watch. You'll find a geek show of some kind, and it's like, nah, you couldn't do that. That doesn't work that way.
Right.
But I've been told that my stories read as very authentic, which is nice. That's a great compliment. So.
Because as a reader, I like to not only like enjoy a good story, but I feel like I like to learn something from each book too. You know, when I read Dean Koontz is really good about that. I've noticed that Dean Koontz has a thing where he might learn a new skill and then do like several books based around something that he researched, whether it be mountain climbing or something like that. So when I read his books, I feel like I've walked away learning, having learned something.
I like that.
So I think that's something that a lot of people enjoy. So I think that's another thing they'll enjoy in your books too. Is not only they get to get a good mystery out of it, but they might maybe learn some of the lingo. Say they want they're aspiring writer themselves and want to write mystery or any kind of crime novels. Yours would be a good resource because it was authentic, right? Because it's authentic compared to maybe somebody who's never worked in law enforcement that writes and kind of makes their own lingos. Any kind of.
I have fellow writers who we will beta read for each other, which is the manuscript's done and we need second set of eyes on it, and I will read their mystery for them, and they'll be writing about a police detective, and I'll say, well, no, you really don't want to say this. It'd be more like, so I kind of help them in that area. So I'm glad to be able to do that.
Very nice.
Writing Fatal Errors, because it is a hacker and there's so much tech, I didn't want to get bogged down in it. And have people who aren't in computers get lost. So I had to find a way to keep it understandable, but still authentically tech for someone like you who could say, "Oh yeah, that's how that works."
Yep. And I wrote a few books on there where that it was clearly written by someone in IT, and it was like, "Oh, I understand what to do." They kept it vague enough, kind of top level. He did this and this, but he didn't go into like lines of code or anything like that, or any specific software.
You find that balance.
Yeah, you have to find that balance because most readers they're there for the story. And pick up a little bit here and there. Now you go through a publishing company, correct?
I'm with a very small press, literally 3 people.
Oh, well, yeah.
It's a husband-wife.
I love it.
And one other gentleman who does the cover design and does I don't know what all. I don't know what each one does. We've never met. They're in North Carolina, but they started out doing a lot of reprints for authors. What do they call it? Your backlist. They started doing a lot of that kind of thing, and they've expanded tremendously. I was fortunate. How much of this you want me to get into? My first book came out with a brand new small press. I was literally their first author. And they were a lovely husband and wife couple who both wrote their own and still write their own mystery series. They did really great things getting me started. We were at the final editing stage of book 2, and they had health issues and went out of business. And I was left with this book. And finding a publisher who will take a series midway is even harder than finding a new publisher. And I don't have the time, patience, or resources to self-publish. I just don't. I know some people do a wonderful job at it, and that's terrific, but it's not me. I just can't do it. So it took a few years, and someone, I don't remember who now, and I wish I did because I owe them a big thank you, suggested Crossroad Press to me, and they took a look at it and said sure, and they even republished the first one for me.
Wow.
Reissued it.
I didn't even know that was an option. I guess if they go out as far as some...
Well, my original publisher, returned all the rights, and
the
cover designer gave me the rights. They were wonderful, and I was able to keep the series together that way, which is really nice.
Because some of our viewers, a lot of them are going to be readers, but a lot of them are going to be writers too. I think one of the biggest curiosity that writers, especially as we specialize in indie authors, is they're the ones that kind of chose not to go the route of constant rejection. I think I was going to look at it.
I did that for too many years.
It takes a lot of tenacity in order to get through that. So I think as writers who are watching are going to be very interested as far as how did you select a particular publishing company, or how it works when one collapses and then you're mid. Because that's something they can run into and questions they have.
It's unfortunate, but it does happen. I did the whole querying in agents and publishers and took that route for too long, and it is discouraging and terribly hard on the ego.
Right.
But then I just happened to stumble on the small press that picked me up. It was.
Let's talk a little bit maybe on some of the benefits of the traditional route. So they're small, but you have someone who does the graphic design. They probably have an editor.
They have editors. They do all the editing, copy editing in particular. formatting, not only for the ebooks but for the print books, because it's a different layout.
It is. Yep.
They put it on Amazon, they put it on Barnes and Noble, they put it on through Instagram or whatever, all of the different outlets. The second book in the trilogy, they even did an audio book on, which I didn't know they were going to.
Wow.
But their niche is a lot of that, and they're doing a lot more audiobooks.
That's forward thinking too, so that's good.
So I don't have to deal with any of that, and to me that's a huge weight off.
And I think that's one of the benefits that that a lot of self-published authors are kind of they long for that, but at the same time they're afraid of the query letters and stuff, the constant rejections, and moving forward.
I didn't have to have an agent, because I gave up on that route. Traditional agent-led publishing is a whole other thing, and I know a lot of people who that's what we wanted, but you don't often have the control. You don't get to pick your cover. You don't get to have much say.
That's another fear that writers have too.
Yeah, so I think in a lot of ways I ultimately ended up with the best of both worlds in a lot of aspects. Because I'm with a press, and they have, because to get into bookstores you have to have right of return and all that stuff that I don't know a whole lot about. And I mean, let's face it, for a lot of years, self-publishing had a really poor reputation. And it's gotten a lot better, and people are much more serious about it, and turning out some really quality work. But when it first started, you couldn't walk into Barnes & Noble and find a self-published book. It wasn't going to happen.
Right, yeah. Even now it's still rather difficult. They don't go through, say, ignorance part.
There's our routes, but it's, before you couldn't do it at all. I was lucky enough, when 40 and Out was released in 2014, I had my book launch at Barnes & Noble.
Oh wow!
It was
that's one of the dreams. That's one of the dreams right there. That's very impressive.
It was wonderful.
You need more water? You doing good over there?
I could do.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're full service here.
I appreciate
Barnes
that.
Noble give you tea? I don't know. I'm not petty.
I get a dry throat and I'll start coughing. And I won't do that.
I'm the same way. Is there any tips that you would maybe give? Say, we have a lot of indie authors that come to the doors here. Maybe some lessons learned. You say they decide not to go the agent route. Is there any tips you would give to somebody who say they were curious about the traditional, but they didn't want that whole?
You really have to decide what your goals are. I teach creative writing, and I always tell my students you have to decide why you're writing it. If you're writing it just for you, go for it. That's a perfectly valid reason to write your books. If you're writing to publish, do you want to walk into Barnes & Noble and see it on the shelf? Do you want to make the New York Times bestseller list? Those are different goals. If you want to just be able to get your book in the hands of readers and build a loyal following, self-publishing is perfectly fine if you have the resources to make it happen well. Too many people, unfortunately, especially in the early days, would write a book and you could upload it to Amazon and be done with it.
I remember
and a
that.
lot of really, unfortunately,
it was discouraging to me as a self-published author. I almost
Yeah.
didn't pursue that forward because of that reason.
You don't want to get lost in those piles of self-published when some of them are really poorly done. That's come a long, like I said, it's come a long way with self-publishing. And if you have the time and resources, if you have the skills, you said you have graphic design skills, you can do your own covers and do a nice job. A poor cover is going to stand out.
My first book was a very poor cover. I just started learning Photoshop, and I used some stock images. I tried blending them together. People couldn't even tell what it was. It was like a pile of just not even colors. It was all just blah. And ever since I've changed it, it's made a huge difference. I used to be the artistic side. They like my book, don't like my book, what's inside. But I learned over time that they really do judge books by their covers.
If you want to stand out from the crowd, all those things matter. And you want to make sure you cannot edit your own book. You just can't. I mean, there comes a point where
I'm guilty of that, my first one, but I will never do it again.
You have to have another set of eyes on it because we start glossing over the errors. We don't see. I'm real good at, for whatever reason, I leave words out. My brain fills it in when I read the sentence, but it's not there. So I need somebody else to read the text and tell me that, hey, you're missing this or whatever. And punctuation and grammar and all those, they really do matter. for a lot of readers. And if it's poorly written, you might have sold that first book, but you're never going to sell another.
Exactly. That's your
reader.
shot. They come across that and it's not good. Doesn't matter how many books you come out after.
And then there's the whole tech end for getting it formatted and uploaded and handled on Amazon. And
Marketing.
And
just a whole new beast. Yeah.
Unfortunately, even with some of the big presses, you still have to do so much of your own marketing.
I think that was my deciding factor. That made me go self-publish. Reading some articles on some of the non-traditional routes, and they were pretty much Reddit's a great place to get to the venting, and they were venting essentially if they weren't as big, the big authors, you're essentially ignored. And they'd publish a book, but they wouldn't promote it, or there's no book signings. There's none of that stuff that normally would go
unless you set it up yourself.
Exactly. So I think, and then it was like, well, if I already got to do my own, work, then it's like I might as well, because I did have those skills of building a website and having been on social media and being pretty active on there, and doing the graphic design. Being in IT definitely helped. Yep. But yeah, for a lot of self-published authors that don't have that route, it's a difficult choice. Whether you have that team beside you or you find and pay that extra money out of your own pocket.
Which is why small presses are a wonderful little niche. And there are more and more, as the tech gets better, people like you maybe with the graphic skills. And if you have those resources, you can start your own publishing company.
Now, what would be the process, I guess, with small press? Because you mentioned the small presses, and you I think, said that you had a friend that recommended that. Say, because obviously you don't want to just start. I mean, they get bombarded anyways, but they also have specific niches that they're specialized in.
If you're going to submit to whether it's the magazines we talked about earlier or to a small press, make sure you read the guidelines. You know what they're looking for. I wouldn't want to submit my mysteries to a romance publisher. They're not a fit. It's going to get rejected. Don't waste the time. Know the guidelines. Know what they're looking for. Even though it's a small press, I still had to write a query letter and have a synopsis, so they had something to go on and make a decision on. Now, many small presses, not all, many, I didn't get a signing, bonus or any of that kind of thing, but I do get royalties, which is nice, because they do all the work, so we're kind of splitting the fee, but I still get decent royalties, and my publisher is very generous.
Right. I think that's another thing that kind of draws authors towards going to traditional too, is to have those royalties. I mean, you get royalties and self-published, but again, you got to do all the work as far as getting in the hands of readers. Yeah. And I'm totally fascinated about the publishing aspect. I think a lot of our writers that are watching this will also be interested. But I also don't want to take away from talking about your books a little bit too. So let's go ahead and kind of pivot back to some of those stories. Now, as an author, a lot of times I draw from personal experiences or people that I know. I use them as inspirations or certain events or scenarios. Any of those books, is there anything that kind of spawned? I know you had with Thayer, you had the character you actually you would interact with and come up with the story, but are maybe your earlier works, are they based on maybe individuals or events or?
There are a lot of in my Toledo Trilogy. We'll talk about that first. There are a lot of people who know me will recognize certain things, either the books that people are reading, or the movies they watch, or places they go. There's the old saying in the writing world: if you write autobiography, nobody's going to believe it; they're going to think you make it up. But if you write fiction, they're positive it's about you. Well, it is sort of. Some of my things are. I mean, they're not. You're not going to be able to go to my book and say, "Oh, that's so and so." I'm not that blatant. Right. It's more of a montage of 3 or 4 or 5 people that I know that are written into a character, and then there's some characters that are just completely
unique.
I will have my first series, because it's in Toledo and because my family from my grandfather, when I was growing up, through our kids and my husband and I are huge baseball fans. So Toledo Mud Hens are in all the stories. We go to baseball games, so they're going to know that kind of thing. It's very definitely from my life.
Right.
But it's part of the story. It's a reasonable, logical progression to the story.
How do you kind of determine maybe what the mystery is going to be? Is it Do you kind of base it on like maybe what's current, or is this a story that kind of you find interesting? I think one of the hardest things as writers, like what spawns the story.
And I wish I had answers for that because I get that question a lot, and I honestly have no idea. My husband reads my books and he says, "How did you come up with that?"
Love it.
In the writing world, there are two groups of writers. There are plotters
and I always ask this question. I just I did
that.
There
are plotters and there are pantsers. Some people, they know the story they're going to write. They have it outlined in character sketches, and it's all laid out before they start writing anything. I can't begin to do that. I have a character, because I write crime, I have the crime. I generally know who the villain is and how it's going to end, and I start writing. Mm-hmm. Things happen that I don't know are going to happen. It just develops and evolves as my mind and energy gets into the story.
Now, once it's complete, and you know, like who
I can go back. In revision, I can add in the clues that I need to drop, or change things a little bit, or put in the red herrings or whatever.
And there's the rub with mystery. That's why a lot of people struggle with mystery, and why in traditional. If there's a niche that's like you have a set of mystery authors, sure, but in the indie, I think that's why it's hard to find people who write mystery. It's because that's the challenge, right? It's not the challenge. You got to make it believable, have a strong ending, but then you also kind of have to do that work to go back, almost like world building, but in this sense, going back and dropping clues in the right place and stuff. I think that's the part that I find the most. I think people love the mysteries, love going back. I can't believe that. And they read the book again. Just for the clues.
Of course, there's a clue right there.
There's a clue right there, and I didn't pick it up.
It's fun. I like puzzles, and I think that's part of my attraction to the mystery of it is the puzzle aspect. But I have had, like in my first book, who I thought was the villain wasn't. Who knew?
Who knew? You're the writer.
If you're not a writer, people don't understand that.
Yeah, we're just as surprised as you are.
Or I think I know how the book's going to end, and my character says, "Nah, I don't want to do that. I'm going over here."
Yep.
But I don't know if you're familiar with Katrina Kettle, who is a
name. I don't think I've read the book.
Dayton area author. She's wonderful fiction, and one thing that I learned from her in workshops that I attended was you have to be true to the story. Mm-hmm. You have to serve the story. No matter what you think is going to happen, you have to serve the story. If you force it, it's going to show.
Right. Now, your stories that take place, I would assume, probably the present?
Contemporary, yeah.
Now, do you write in, say, first person or?
The Toledo Trilogy is in third person.
Okay.
Generally one point of view, my main character. Fatal Errors, the new trilogy, is first person. Because that's how she woke me up. She said, "Hey." And she has a very strong voice, which I love. It's very distinctive. She's what I wish I was at 25, which is what she is when this first one starts. Very independent, very knows what she thinks she knows.
Right. Sounds very headstrong right off the bat.
As we all are at 25, she thinks she knows a lot more than she really might. But that's part of the character growth, as the story progresses. But she definitely has a very strong voice in first person. I found really worked well for her.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading it. I'm not gonna lie. I'm talking about that it takes local and the fact that the acting aspect and the way you describe the character. So if you're ever considered writing, expect to open up a door of a lot of voices. There's going to be a lot of knocking at your door, wanting their story told. So it's I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of movies and shows portray authors very homebodies locked and reclusive, because they already hear enough voices. They don't need to go out, right? And hear and just be introduced to more. So, but thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was an absolute pleasure. I have a feeling I could probably pick your brain all night about your writing.
Writers love to talk about writing.
I know, but you have so many different aspects too. So you're a writer. You're also a creative writer, teacher. You were someone who was in the criminal justice system. You've gone the traditional route. You just have so much to bring to the table, and so excited to meet you. So really appreciate that sharing that, with all of us, because I think that at the very least, this interview will inspire some people and help them maybe help them pick which direction they want to go in their writing careers. But and I'm sure in your career you probably inspire quite a few too. So I hope so too. That
talking to writers is always inspiring for me. We feed off each other.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons I love being a part of now on the bookseller side, because I get to just meet not so much like fellow writers bounce ideas off, which I love, but also I get to be the one that gets to learn about their stories more in depth, so that I can advertise it. Because as a bookseller, I'm learning like a different side of it, and now I'm on the side of people come and ask about books. I have to know what that book's about. I have to kind of like that's what. So we're actually like reading more than I've ever read now. As an author. I know. As an author, I was supposed to be creating the stories, but now that I'm a bookseller, I'm like a reader more now. And we're constantly just going through books, trying to read them, because we want to be the knowledgeable people. As people come in, I think having a chance to talk to you one-on-one is a big step in getting to know your characters in your books.
That will always be one of the biggest benefits to indie bookstores like you all, which is why I tell people all the time, support your indies, because they're going to know the books. And if you need a book, they're going to know where to direct you and what to tell you. And I am just such a strong proponent for folks like you, and you're so authors appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
They really do.
And I tell you right now, one of the big selling points that we have is that we not only know the books, we know the authors. We got a chance to meet the authors. All the books back there are signed. We met them individually, and we've interviewed them. They've come in for book signings. When we started this and started doing the offering book signing stuff, there's no. I mean, writers are just passionate about their books and they want to give them in the hands of readers. I think if they had the energy and had the time, instead of having the door-to-door vacuum cleaners, we'd have the door-to-door authors selling their books. I thought about it a few times, but I never went that route. But I considered it. But again, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge. If any of you, I know that are watching this, I know you probably have a lot more questions. Feel free to drop them down, and I'll put them in an email and just keep sending it to you over and over again.
You can go to my website and ask. I'm always happy to talk about it.
All of our links are going to be in the description below, so we'll have the links to our website, all of our socials. Make sure you're going out and you're supporting these authors, because they have a passion for writing, and I believe they'll write regardless if anybody ever reads their books. But I tell you, it is a special thing when you do pick up their book. When you do let them know you picked up your book. When you let them know you love the book, it goes a long way. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you all so much for joining us. And we will see you in the next interview. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.